Kirk Cousins. There's been reports that the Niners were interested in Kirk Cousins, even maybe inquired about him at the combine before they knew that it was going to be good news with Brock Purdy's surgery. And, I mean, if they were inquiring about a trade with Kirk Cousins, you already know who the trade offer was going to be around. Trey Lance, most likely. What do you think about this dance that the Niners have been doing with Kirk Cousins since 2017?
Well, this was a Mike Florio rumor coming out of the combine. Florio says that it was the talk of the combine. Now, Cousins has a $36.2 million cap charge for this year. This is the final year of his deal. I don't know if it's being talked about as something that's going to happen soon or if it's just something that's going to happen eventually. But I would be shocked if Kirk Cousins were traded to the Niners, in short amount of time. But if you say next year, if they're still looking for a quarterback or, if they don't, not sure about Brock or whatever, I could see that. I mean, we all know Kyle loves Cousins. We all know Cousins has hailed Kyle as one of the key figures in his professional life. So there's no question that we know the two sides like each other, but how's that coming together?
Well, Kirk Cousins will be a free agent next year. Next year, it's a void year in his contract. So unless the Vikings franchise tag him, he'll be gone. And I get the feeling that they're kind of over the Kirk Cousins era. I mean, they got him. They gave him weapons. He's played as well as he possibly can. He's a good quarterback. They're not going anywhere with him. So they can give it one more shot. But if they don't do anything in the playoffs again next year, I think they'd be willing to move on from him now. I think they probably won't re-sign him next year. He'll be 36. And if Brock, if he's not the same, if the league catches up with him, if his arm isn't the same or whatever, well, we just talked about how Kyle Shanahan falls out of love with quarterbacks as quickly as he falls into love with them, unless their first name is Kirk. If that's a different story, maybe Kyle's just saving himself for Kirk this whole time. If Brock doesn't repeat what he did last year, look for the Niners to make that run for Kirk next year in free agency. That's my bold take.
I think he's their backup plan at this point.
Yes.
If Brock is plan A,
agree.
Cousins is plan
Kirk is
B.
Exciting.
Which also adds to, I didn't even throw that into the video, but it does add to the trade discussion, because why would Kirk Cousins be plan B when you have Trey Lance sitting right there? And obviously there's something going on there that's more than meets the eye.
Yeah. The process of getting Trey Lance always seemed a little strange. I mean, they traded up, but they said they didn't know who they wanted yet. Like that'll never make any sense to me. So they gave themselves a month to figure it out and then decided it was Trey Lance. And there was no combine that year. It's like, wow, way to set yourself up for failure on that one. But Kirk Cousins, I really hope the Niners don't sign Kirk Cousins. I have no feeling why, but it's just like
where are you with him? Because I mean, okay, so they scored points. They had the worst defense. They had like the 31st ranked defense in pro football. I mean,
he gives you nothing off script, nothing. He's had some just horrendous performances in big games. Exactly.
He doesn't win big games. He doesn't win. He's like, they lose big games, and sometimes he hasn't played well in big games. So it's like, is the moment too big? He might just be a guy that's just good enough to get you beat.
Isn't that kind of like Derek Carr too?
I think so. Might be Jimmy Garoppolo in the playoffs too.
Exactly. I mean, it might be a marginal upgrade over Jimmy Garoppolo, but is Kirk Cousins, I mean, is he Matthew Stafford? To me, no. He's not a guy who's going to throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdown passes in a game against Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. I guess not going to happen. So what are you doing?
I could see why Kirk Cousins wants to come here, because if the Niners maintain a top tier defense, that's probably the only way a guy like Kirk Cousins could ever get a ring.
That's true. I really hope that doesn't happen. Ethan M. says, can you see Jed applying more pressure on Kyle this season? Not sure if Jed was genuine at the owners' meeting or if he was playing CEO. Again, I don't even know how much power Jed has anymore. I mean, I get the feeling that the Kyle Shanahan hire was a family decision. I don't know that necessarily is Jed. And I don't know that Jed could fire anyone. It's probably a family decision. So, because when the season gets bad and they're like 3-5, what happens? John shows up to practice.
Right.
Uh-oh, Dad's here. It's just got serious.
It does have it. it has a different feel when Dr.
Yeah.
John is at practice.
Uh-oh.
But
Yeah.
but in some ways they're not going to be satisfied with Kyle till he wins the bowl. But in other ways, you get the feeling that because of Chip Kelly, because of Tom Sula, that Kyle can kind of stay as long as he wants.
I think the 49ers look at the Rams and say, I don't want to be them. And when I say the Niners, I'm talking Jed and the Yorks, because the Rams sold out for that Super Bowl, which is the right sports decision. But it didn't necessarily get them a rabid fan base. Now they suck and they have no like revenue anymore. And I think the Niners are like, you know what? I'd rather be in the mix every year than to go through that purgatory. And I say, again, that's the Yorks, I'm thinking. From a money-making perspective, better to always say you're close than to just go all in and put yourself at that standard and potentially have to rebuild.
It's better for the fans. It's better for the fans. Compete every year. Have all the years be, at least viable. What the Rams did was they took one big bite of the apple. They got their Super Bowl, and they kind of checked out last year. They're going to check out this year. They'll probably be down for 3 years.
But they're champions.
So,
Fish and Chip says, while fans obsess about quarterbacks, schemer Kyle Shanahan escapes. I love it. Schemer Kyle. Did you ever watch Thomas the Tank Engine, Shining Time Station, like with your kids or anything?
Oh, yeah. You kidding me?
Yeah.
He was blue, right?
Yes. So if I remember correctly, I was a kid. It would start off in like the train little clubhouse.
Garage.
And there was like a lady there, and there was a guy named Schemer, and he was a bad guy. And then they would like go into this Nickelodeon like jukebox, and there were people playing in there, and then they would tell stories, and you would go into the land where the trains were. But there was a guy named Schemer, if I remember correctly, the bad guy, who was like a real person. Remember, there were like live action people, and then there were like the trains. Anyway, Schemer is Kyle Shanahan. And Thomas the Tank Engine is Brock. Could be Trey.
We got our kid a Thomas the Tank Engine, like one of those hard ones, and one of those like little cars, and I stepped on it on the way to the bathroom one night and just went down.
I was a big Thomas the Tank Engine guy when I was a kid, and I have a little bit of OCD, I think, which is why I talk about the 49ers every day. And my original obsession was Thomas the Tank Engine. So when I was like 2, my parents would take me out to restaurants, and I would talk to the waiter like, hey, do you want to know about Thomas? And I would tell him about every single person in the show. Did you know that I would
fire anybody off the show? Did anybody get fired?
This guy's terrible. Mr. Conductor, what is he doing? Sven says, off topic, just curious if Krugs witnessed the slam Francisco Giants today. Oh,
I did.
How they doing?
Bombs when the Giants
7 bombs.
Yeah, opening day they ruined the White Sox opening day with 7 home runs. It was
what is this
really different
interleague bullshit to start the season, man? What is that?
Oh, it's all year. It's every day. There's interleague every day in baseball now.
I'm such an old man. I'm like, everything about baseball. I'm like, in my day, the Reds had the first game of the season.